Spotlight is proudly sponsored by HEC Media, St. Louis's home for arts, education, and culture.
There was always something about Missouri that brought them back.
And I'm sitting back there with a lump in my throat because it sounds so good.
Be willing to do new things.
Today on Spotlight, scientists look into how taking immunosuppressants affects how well the COVID vaccine protects you. Plus, meet the organ doctor who tunes the 1920s Wurlitzer at the fabulous Fox Theater. And then she's fascinated by fungus inside the Foundry's Missouri Mushroom exhibit. But first, from Mark Twain to Langston Hughes, a look back at writers with roots in Missouri. It's Sunday and you're watching the multiple Emmy Award-winning Spotlight.
Missouri is vast, from the mighty Mississippi to the mountains, from rural farmland to the bustling cities of St. Louis and Kansas City. It is often the backdrop of stories by the most prolific writers who have ever put pen to paper.
Most of the adventures recorded in this book really occurred. One or two were experiences of my own, the rest those of boys who were schoolmates of mine.
From the past to the present, Mark Twain, born Samuel Clemens in 1835, moved to Hannibal, Missouri when he was 4. The small river town had a lasting impact on his life and work, dealing with issues of slavery, poverty, and class differences.
When I think of my wife, I always think of her head, the shape of it to begin with.
Gillian Flynn, whose Gone Girl was a New York Times bestseller, was born in Kansas City, Missouri in 1971. The book was later turned into a movie and shot in Cape Girardeau.
Some people weren't born here, but they felt so compelled to live here that the area just inspired them to build their home and build their family here. You know, some went off and lived elsewhere, but really felt the need to come back. And I think that passion of Missouri is what drives them all to write.
In honor of the Missouri Bicentennial, the Eugene Fieldhouse Library hosted a special exhibit, Missouri Writers, 200 Years of Talent.
One of the books that inspired us in this exhibit was Mark Twain Abroad, and it was and Eugene Field and Mark Twain Abroad, and it was about the two of them and their different travels, not necessarily with each other, but their travels at the same time period and how they viewed what they were doing. And that kind of showed us that there were connections here in Missouri, and we wanted to go from there.
Mark Twain took his Missouri roots up east, starting the Missouri Society of New York.
The sun's a setting.
Writers like Langston Hughes, born in Joplin, Missouri in 1902, continued that legacy. And in 1963, he was elected a trustee of the Missouri Society of New York. Often writing about the struggles of black people, Hughes went on to become the poet laureate of Harlem.
What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun?
The exhibit featured the 12-volume set of its namesake, Eugene Field's work, and an original copy of this poem he wrote in perfect penmanship.
This one being a manuscript of Lover's Lane. Lover's Lane is a lane in St. Joe, Missouri, where Eugene would take his lovely wife, then when he was courting her, down. So Lover's Lane became quite the road in St. Joe. It's still there today. They still honor him there.
Winkin', blinkin', and nod one night, sailed off in a wooden shoe.
Born in St. Louis in 1850, Eugene Field was known as the children's poet. Another notable writer from St. Louis also wrote children's books. Kate Thompson, born Catherine Kitty Fink in 1909, wrote the series of books about Eloise, a 6-year-old girl that lived in the Plaza Hotel in New York. Thompson lived at the Plaza in the 1950s.
And baby Carrie left their little house in the big woods of Wisconsin.
Born in Wisconsin after the family moved to Mansfield, Missouri, Laura Ingalls Wilder began her career as a writer in 1894. She published Little House in the Big Woods in 1932, the first of her popular series. Today, her home in Mansfield is a museum.
I'd rather stay on this hot tin roof.
The great American playwright Tennessee Williams, known for his Pulitzer Prize-winning plays like Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, was born Thomas Lanier Williams in 1911 in Mississippi. But when he was 13, his family moved to St. Louis.
His background, his family life was challenging for him. He came from the South. They moved to St. Louis when he was a young boy. He was short. He was very Southern, and he was homosexual, and he was not accepted here.
Carrie Hauk is with the Tennessee Williams Festival in St. Louis. This year's festival featured the Glass Menagerie. Produced behind Williams' boyhood home on Westminster Place, it was met with rave reviews. But it is an obscure play written at about the same time in the 1940s called Stairs to the Roof that truly connected Williams to his St. Louis roots.
What I loved about it was, I recognized so much of St. Louis in it. So many St. Louis sites, and the International Shoe Company, Wash U, Forest Park. It's all in that play, the zoo.
It was here in the Central West End that Tennessee Williams grew into the artist that he would become. Down the street from his home, he worked as a writer in residence at a 500-seat theater, now known as the Link Auditorium.
So this is where Tennessee performed with a group called the Mummers in the late 30s. And his first full-length play was produced by them. They were a community theater group that was on the edgy side, bohemians. They all had day jobs.
Tennessee Williams struggled with mental illness and drug addiction. In 1983, he lost his battle and died of a drug overdose in New York City. His brother brought him back to St. Louis to be buried here at Calvary Cemetery.
The black female is assaulted in her tender years by all those common forces of nature at the same time that she is caught in the tripartite crossfire of masculine prejudice, white illogical hate, and black lack of power.
Award-winning poet and writer Maya Angelou was born in St. Louis in 1928, here at 3130 Hickory Street. Now registered as a St. Louis landmark, she lived here until she was 3 years old.
Buildings have a power to tell stories and to connect physically with people's imaginations in a unique way. And so, these bricks behind us were here. She knew these bricks. She knew these streets. And this is the home that sheltered her. So there is a very physical, tangible connection to this great American encompassed in this building.
At the time, this neighborhood was very segregated. St. Louis forced race-based housing restrictions until the late 1940s.
There weren't that many neighborhoods where African Americans were allowed to live, and this was one of them.
Many writers deal with their own pain on the page, in their world wrestling with words that become life-changing for them and their readers.
Whether they were always here or moved away, there was always something about Missouri that brought them back to their roots or what became their legacy.
Scan the QR code on your screen to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Shantae Brown couldn't be more proud. She says she has two accomplished sons who are both very protective of their mom. That's because Shantae has an autoimmune disease that puts her at greater risk of severe symptoms from COVID-19 and its variants.
I can die. With me having a suppressed immune system, I'm already fighting other stuff. I have lupus, SLE, and I take immunosuppressants.
Because of this, she was deprived of spending valuable time with sons Jordan and Cameron.
So they wanted to protect me. After months, it got very frustrating. Cameron didn't come home at all for 7 to 8 months.
But she would not miss Jordan's graduation from Wichita State University.
He is a first generation in our family graduate of 4-year school.
And this proud mom was determined to attend Cameron's Ohio State Buckeyes football games. She did it with an N95 covered by a mask of bling, and in time, the vaccines.
I wear my mask at games even though we're outside.
That's because when the Delta variant surged, so did her concerns. Shantae says her blood test showed how the vaccine did not give her the same protection as healthy people while taking her immunosuppressant prescription. She worked through her fears while participating in a research study at Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis.
Start getting blood drawn like every 4 to 5 weeks. I think I got a total of 8 blood draws.
Lead senior author of the study, rheumatologist Dr. Alfred Kim and his team use the blood samples for testing. The samples are collected from vaccinated immunosuppressed patients.
Patients with chronic inflammatory diseases on immunosuppression, people with inflammatory bowel diseases such as Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. We also looked at people with rheumatoid arthritis, systemic lupus erythematosus, multiple sclerosis, and related diseases.
They discovered a weaker antibody response from vaccines in samples from patients with autoimmune diseases taking immunosuppressants.
Most people on immunosuppression are able to mount some sort of antibody response, albeit at a slightly reduced level. But that slightly reduced level still had some protection against the common variant or the variant that existed last year.
A patient's antibody protection provided by the COVID-19 vaccines vary depending on their type of immunosuppressant.
Drugs that have the most impact, such as B-cell depleting agents or prednisone or glucocorticoids, will likely have a reduced protective effect.
Another discovery was made when testing the quality of antibody response to the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine in immunosuppressed patient samples against the Delta variant.
We identified people on a major class of immunosuppression called TNF inhibitors. It's a very commonly used drug for inflammatory bowel disease, rheumatoid arthritis, and other diseases. It seems like the TNF inhibitor users have a specific defect that potentially blocks their ability to be able to at least fight off Delta variant in a petri dish.
And now with the Omicron variant, Dr. Kim and his colleagues are testing vaccinated patient samples for neutralizing potential against Omicron.
I think it's really important. I think science is important. And if I can help with something, I want to do it.
Kim says the study supports the FDA's emergency use authorization of monoclonal antibodies before infection as protection for immunocompromised patients. And Dr. Kim says the arrival of pre-exposure prophylaxis and new antivirals will provide some cushion for patients with poor vaccine responses, which is something that he feels needs to happen.
It seems like that variants can emerge out of immunosuppressed people who are hospitalized. So this is important to make sure that this very vulnerable population is protected one way or the other, whether it's through vaccination and providing additional doses, but if that doesn't work, through things like pre-exposure prophylaxis.
For more information, go to our website, hecmedia.org.
Students share their love of music later on Spotlight.
Hi, I'm Al Haker. I'm the organ curator here at the Fabulous Fox, the Mighty Wurlitzer. Over the years, I've got everything working pretty well, but not the first time. I mean, a lot of things have happened to make them work well. Because this stuff was all built in 1926. Most of it is air rushing through the pipes. So there's air created with a big blower like a fan. And then that goes through various pipes. You just press a key and that key actuates little valves underneath the pipe and causes the air to go through the pipe and creates the sound. It's exactly like a piano. The only difference is there's a pipe organ, is the keys are either on or off. With a piano, the amount of pressure that you put on a key will make it sound either soft or loud. If you bang on it, it's loud, it's soft, but pipe organs don't do that. You regulate the sound with big shutters that open and close, and that creates volume control. So there's a brass reed inside here. And so when the air rushes across this, it causes this reed to vibrate. And so when you tune it, you're making the reed either shorter or longer, depending. If it's shorter, you're sharpening it. And if you make it longer, it's going to flatten it a little. There's also this thing on the top, you can do the same thing. This is more of a voicing thing. But anyway, that's usually how we tune it with the wire. But if you pull this back a little, it's going to sharpen it, because there's the column of air that's coming out is going to stop here. And if you push it in, it's going to go up a little bit higher. And so that'll change the pitch as well. First of all, if you're tuning something really loud, you need headphones so your ears don't go away. And this is actually a tuning device. Right now it's going to play middle C. So that gives you a groundwork. So this side has the C is on that side, the C sharp is here. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. So I can either do it with the sound, or there's a strobe in here as well, and it changes the how this operates. So strobe is moving to the left, so it means it's a little flat, not too bad. So it was pretty close. The strobe was barely moving, so that was, I mean, on theater organs you can get by with that. On church organs it has to be right on the money. So that's how it works. Since this is all Wurlitzer, this was Wurlitzer's attempt, a 1920s technology to make this stuff work. It's an obsession. My wife tells me the same thing. She said, you can't stop doing this. I don't know, it's the satisfaction of hearing the thing play by a really good organist. And I'm sitting back there almost, with a lump in my throat because it sounds so good. So that's the best thing.
On January 31st, 1929, the fabulous Fox Theater opened its doors as a movie theater with the showing of the film Street Angel. At the time of its opening, the 4,500 capacity venue was the second largest theater in America. After a decline in interest in the 60s and 70s, the Fox reopened its doors in 1982, following a change in ownership and an extensive renovation that made the space into a performing arts center.
HEC Media. Recognized, celebrated, honored time and again for excellence in the industry. Mid-America Emmys, Tellys, Natoas, Auroras, and other awards. HEC Media has been bringing home the hardware for over a decade. Hundreds of nominations and wins, from regional to international levels. Arts and education to author talks, magazine shows and documentaries, individual craft achievements to overall excellence, plus so much more. And although doing good work is its own reward, recognition, well, it's nice too. See what all the fuss is about. Find all of the award-winning content at hecmedia.org.
I'm Jody Williams. I'm a studio artist here at the Foundry Art Center, and currently I have an exhibition running in the Ameristar Gallery of watercolor paintings of mushrooms. I'm fascinated by the natural world, whether it's flowers or trees, or particularly mushrooms. Ever since I was a child, it just was fascinating to see the variety of colors and shapes that mushrooms came in, and I grew up in a place where they didn't grow, so I never had an opportunity to see them in real life. But now that I live in Missouri, I was just astounded by the variety and quantity of mushrooms. And so my fascination was rekindled, and I started collecting mushrooms, trying to identify them, drawing them, painting them. My process is very defined, and I follow it very consistently, and that may be an outcropping of the fact that I have an engineering and analytical background. And I find that a lot of people that do botanical art are very keen to representing things accurately. So when I draw, I take measurements. I have to show in the drawing enough of the identifying features of the mushroom that someone could look at it and tell what it is. I feel really fortunate to be a studio artist at the Foundry Art Center. It's a very supportive environment. I have this beautiful space with so much light, so much inspiration, and one of the really exciting things about being a studio artist here is the opportunity to have a solo exhibition. I'm very excited to present Missouri mushrooms in the Ameristar Gallery, and am fortunate to be in a place that supports its artists in such a way. The artwork that I've included in the exhibition downstairs represents mushrooms that either grow naturally in Missouri or a few that are readily cultivated by commercial growers in Missouri. I would like for people to take away the fact that even though there's only 27 paintings in the exhibition, it really shows the variety of mushrooms that grow in Missouri. Every color is represented: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, all variations of browns and grays, as well as the variety of shapes and forms. So I hope you come to the exhibition. I think you'll find it fascinating both in subject matter and treatment with watercolor painting. For those of you who aren't familiar with watercolor, the medium gives a beautiful translucent glow to the subject matter, which is often a characteristic of mushrooms. So I hope you'll come and see beauty in the subject matter and see beauty in the treatment of it in watercolor, and enjoy your visit to the Foundry. Missouri mushrooms will be on view through February 26th. For more information, visit www.foundryartcenter.org.
HEC has been bringing you positive programming and award-winning content for decades. Arts, education, culture, in-depth discussions, films, and more. All in one place, hecmedia.org.
You can find the stories featured in today's show along with past episodes and more at hecmedia.org/spotlight.
This is not the school music group you might remember as a child. It's not band class or orchestra. It's more like an improv night with friends, with both movement and music.
We play all sorts of music, and it's not just one genre, and it lets us try out new things. And we get to do choreography, which is so much fun to dance around and play music. It's just such an experience. I really love it so much, and so it's such an interactive way of performing.
Meet the Lindbergh High School Strolling Strings, a high-energy group of musicians with an alternative style of playing strings and other instruments.
I was a member and president of Strolling Strings. It was my whole life. I loved it, and it really sparked a passion for music when I was there.
Tara Landers directs the group composed of student musicians who audition for coveted spots. The Strolling Strings have quite a legacy to live up to.
This year is our 30th anniversary. It was started in the 1991-92 school year by Sue Rollet. She was my director.
There is a lot of laughter with the group and a shared love of music.
The music that we play is, to me, really interesting because we'll go from rock to super old, like Irish music to fiddle music, and we play so many different kinds of music that you really learn to have a more diverse sense of the art.
When I was in 3rd grade, the Strolling Strings goes around to all the elementary schools, and they have a little tour where they get to perform, and we all get to watch them play. And that was kind of the light bulb moment for me, where I realized, oh, okay, this is what I want to do. And so that's kind of sparked my whole love for violin throughout the years.
We are basically an amateur/professional group because we do have a fee that we suggest for performances, and that allows us to buy new equipment. We have a whole sound system, speakers and microphones and wireless body packs and etc. And it also helps us to travel. We're actually going to Branson this summer.
The group is a registered 501c3. The Strings also do community outreach, performing for local charities. Since it's an extracurricular, the kids spend a lot of their free time rehearsing, performing, and socializing with the group.
It's a really close-knit group of people. It's really great. And also the fact that we play for so many different things. We play for events in our community, like the Suncrest Festival. We also play at nursing homes, which has been really fun. We also play at really, really cool places like the Red and Blue Gala. We played for that recently, which was our first performance this year.
Senior Benny Maurer says being part of the Strolling Strings has changed him as a musician.
My freshman year, I wasn't as quick in improvisation, but now I can think on my feet more quickly. I'm a better problem solver, and I can just be a better musician.
Maurer plans to study music composition at Webster University now that his one-time hobby turned into a passion through his involvement with the group.
I feel like that the connections I made in Strolling Strings are going to have a big effect on how I make music, because now I have just so many people just ready to jump on any opportunity to help me compose and help me write and help me perform music.
The group has traveled nationally and internationally and has been recognized with awards for their work. But students say it's the friendships and life lessons that make Strolling Strings life-changing.
I think that the biggest thing is having confidence. I think that the first thing that you learn in strolling, and something that applies to everything later in life, is the confidence in just being able to try new things and under a stressful environment. And at first you're really scared to play in front of other people, and it's really stressful, but eventually you just enjoy it, and you kind of thrive in that environment. And I think the biggest thing is just enjoy yourself. Don't stress out too much. Just be willing to do new things.
Next week, drone school, learning how to understand the sophisticated equipment. Plus, he's toured with Nelly and Cedric the Entertainer, and interview with DJ Cut. Thanks for watching Spotlight. Join us next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. on KPLR 11.